And welcome back, folks, to the NA podcast. I say it's always the latest and the greatest, but that's because it is. Welcome back to episode freaking 10. I can't believe we just came up with this idea in the summer. That'd be a fun idea to run a podcast, and I guess here we are. Paladin, what's good?
Double digits. I mean, I'm happy that we made it to this little bit of a milestone. To me, it's like it's always tough to get past that 10 episode mark for a lot of these new podcasts. So I'm already really excited about the future of this podcast. We've got a lot of great ideas ideating to make this thing even better. We're also like getting to the close of basically the first tournament of this podcast actually existing within the tournament space.
Right?
And we'll close it out today. And then upwards and onwards. I mean, we've got the major on the horizon, RMRs as well. Like, this is going to be an exciting couple of weeks, especially with NA. So stay tuned.
Yeah, we slogged it out through the summer without a single like real tournament. We were just kind of, I would say we were running on fumes, but now we got some juice to work with. Now we actually got some opinions to be had, and boy, do we have some. And what just wrapped up? What else to put our opinions upon than to say anything but ESL Pro League has just wrapped up their group stage, and well, they've also drawn the playoffs. The bracket has been set. Well, we'll go ahead and run down some of those storylines. You wanna head immediately into our tier list, or you wanna talk some things up?
Honestly, let's start with the tier list. I think that'll give us a good understanding to everybody what we're actually thinking of when we head into conversate about the rest. Of the teams here. But I guess for us, I mean, at least for me, I think that the title contenders out the gates are FaZe and Na'Vi. I know Na'Vi do look a bit shaky.
Right.
But that is my little piece.
But there is one. I mean, it's obvious that FaZe and Na'Vi are the obvious title. Okay, maybe not even Na'Vi is an obvious title contender.
Yeah.
Like, coming into that group stage, Simple was not even, like, okay, 1.1 rating for Simple in the group stage, but, like, we expect 1.3 minimum, right? That's literally the, this is a severely below average performance for Simple, even considering what, like, Head Trick was able to do. Remember back to the fall groups, that was nearly a month ago now. But, like, even then, I mean, form was not good for Simple. And I guess now with Moldgate going down, for anyone who is paying attention to Twitter in the last day, well, who knows? Maybe his form could tank a little bit more. I don't know, guys. But, like, even just on the server, I mean, I don't think there's a point to be made that Na'Vi is not a title contender. I'll put him in there just because I'm not that much of a lunatic, but you're not crazy for thinking that they aren't a title contender.
I think the main thing for me is that, like, so first of all, whenever like Simple is like mad about something, whatever tournament he plays after, he just, like, genuinely has a chip on his shoulder when he plays, then he just goes like insane. I think the main thing that I'm kind of worried about is probably Bit, just because he looked super mortal in the group stage. He kind of looked meh at the fall groups.
Sure.
And you really need this guy to fire on all cylinders, especially with some of the positions that he plays. He's got to be an absolute turret in some of these positions. You think bathrooms on overpass to be a very key point as to why that overpass looked so mortal. And I think that their key sides also looked a little shaky. But I don't know. To me, it feels more like a one-off situation, and I don't have the biggest worries. Obviously, I still need to be proven otherwise. But I think another key team that, at least what I've been seeing around the block, is G2 being flirted as a title contender. But to me, I still need one. Like, to me, if I could put a tier between title contender and deep run, that's where I would put G2 right now, because I don't have enough sample size on their playoff results to like safely put them in title contender stage. But I also really liked the potential that I saw from them in the group stage, that I have to kind of like put them somewhere on the fence. So I'm gonna lean more deep run, because I have an expectation that they could at least make the semis. But but they're actually playing Na'Vi, so
they are
making the semi in and of itself would be like a huge win. So I'm gonna go deep run here.
Okay. I mean, they're already in this. If they beat Na'Vi, I guess it's already a huge win. I mean, it does come down to the bracket. I could pull that up really quickly. We can toss it back to ourselves for just a second, and I'll pull up the bracket for you guys to take a gander at. But yeah, we see like some of the. I mean, because Navi ended 2-3, and since they did look so weak, they will have to face off against G2 in a quarterfinal. Okay, well, and also, I mean, they play against Heroic round 1. That's its own sort of bonanza right there. I'll pull up the playoff bracket for us to see. Let's see if I can fit it properly onto our bracket slide. Give it a moment. Production is whirring right now at maximum speed, and yeah, this would probably work. Yeah, so okay, this would probably work. I could move around, scroll it up and down a little bit, but yeah, this is our bracket, and you can see Heroic versus Na'Vi playing. I mean, bringing it back to the tier list. I mean, I'll say G2. Yeah, I guess. I mean, they could beat Na'Vi, but if they beat Na'Vi, they're a title contender. So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I would put that. I would put that up here. That's my thing. Look, I'm the one putting the icons in the list in the rows
Yeah,
here.
exactly. Yeah, no, fair enough. I think we could start moving on to like safe deep run teams, and I think Vitality is a pretty safe one.
Yeah.
Just because we're gonna talk about it later in Stonks as well, but like holy shit, I mean this Sphinx move just works pound for pound in terms of replacing Masuta, even if the communication isn't necessarily S tier that we were kind of expecting this team to kind of get together as of right now. But that in and of itself has me feeling like, oh look, they're gonna beat a Furia Outsiders purely based off of the firepower that's in this squad, and I think that at least gives them a semifinal berth. And then I think they can keep it competitive with the G2 Na'Vi, at least to suggest that, okay, maybe we've got a 3 mapper on our hands or a close 2 maps. Like, I think that in and of itself has me putting them in that deep run category.
So here for Vitality, I mean, everyone's out here thinking, yeah, they're basically guaranteed themselves a semifinal, sure. But I think there are some serious chances that they could actually appear in the grands. I wouldn't say like, oh, this team is just relegated to a deep run. Just let's not forget what they did in their group as well. Like, just check that out really quickly. But I think it's a little. I mean, I think it's fair to put them in the deep run. I don't think they're better than these 3 teams up here. I mean, well, we'll see how Na'Vi looks. If Na'Vi, I feel really worried about that. And and while this bracket was fairly drawn and everything, this part right here, this lower end is just murder.
We were gonna get a brutal bracket, I think, regardless, just because Na'Vi went 2 and 3. Like, if they did actually do what was required of them, I think we'd have a very different looking bracket. But now we've got to have just like a brutal segment of like all 4 of the segments,
right?
So I mean, this is honestly the best possible thing, I think, because there was mention that FaZe and Na'Vi could have drawn each other in the round of 12, and nobody would have liked that. So I'm happy with this because at least you can make an argument that, hey, Heroic's really inconsistent, and you can kind of see a collapse in a series or here or there, and allows Na'Vi to power up. So honestly, I mean, we could just go ahead and put in where Heroic stands. I would put them in could get a win portion, just because I think that they had some good signs in some of the series that they had, but they also had some very close series. So the one against Astralis, they basically, like, in my eyes, they basically lost that series. The way they won it was through like this insane half force buy that they had on the tail end of their T side of nuke, and it basically hamstrung the CT economy, and they ran away with it. And even against Complexity, it was tight. Heat also was really labored. And those games in and of itself, and how they just capitulated against Maus. Personally, I don't think that they're ready. Like, if they drew any of the other teams in this bracket, I think they might have been able to tussle with them, but I don't think that they'll beat Na'Vi.
Yeah, I mean, it's up in the air. I mean, yeah, Na'Vi, I swear, they look mortal for a split second in group stages, and then they come back in playoffs and slaughter everyone. I'm sure.
That's why I want to be proven wrong, Like, I don't want to be looking like the fool putting them in like deep run,
Yeah. I think I mean, they could beat Na'Vi. I mean, it seems like a lot of teams could beat Na'Vi, but generally said, I think Old Reliable is about to come back and show us what they got. I guess we'll move on to Yeah.
Look, I'm so glad that they're here. I'm so glad that they're here.
They're here. That's the win. That's the
But
biggest win.
yeah, to just get reps under your belt. Hey, you've already exceeded expectations to be here. Congrats, Complexity. We'll talk a little bit more about them in Best Region and what we actually saw from them, the good stuff. And I guess we could talk about the other NA team, Liquid. Look,
This best eight. Sorry.
that's a great NA team as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Anyways, but
I think the thing is, I kind of have to break the metrics of the tier list here because on paper, yeah, I think they can make a semi. But on the other hand, I don't actually think that they're like a deep run, quote unquote, team right now, just because of how mortal OC looked. And I think I tweeted about this multiple times, but I don't think this team can compete if OC isn't awake because you're not. The thing about Yekindar is, yeah, he has this huge star power to drop 40 in like a single overtime game. But I don't think that it's enough to win complete best of threes. Like, I mean, that basically sums it up, man. Like to me, like I have to just like say, okay, this is the Yekindar show, and I just put them in could get a win tier in some ways, but I still see them making like a semi because they got a really easy bracket.
All right, Team Yekindar showing up. God, watching that team, it really is only Yekindar. And you know the funniest part about that Cloud9 series is that they had to win that, but the team didn't actually know in that game that they had to win the series to actually make it into playoffs. Which was the funniest part. So Yekindar was just, whooping Cloud9's ass in like the last 3 rounds of overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And while him having no idea that he actually needs to be doing this, that man was just having a fun time. And oh God, it really is only this guy on this team. Just we've already called for him to not visa, not even like a citizenship. Make a statue of this guy. He just needs he needs to be memorialized somewhere.
He's saving our faces really, really much right this time around.
There are like famous foreigners who have come to save, like Baron von Steuben or something like that. The person who like exercised Washington's army. Yeah, this guy right here. This guy right here is definitely
next
one of them.
up on the totem pole. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get wrapping this one up quickly here.
So honestly, yeah, we'll put C9 in deep run.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll put Fnatic in forget it.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
We'll put Mouse could get a win. At least for me. I mean, you are the producer after all, Fi. But I put them in those bottom 2 tiers.
It's like Mouse is an interesting team. Like they looked great, but I feel like it's just a product of the fact that there's no footage on this team. No one really cared about this team. They thought, oh, they might get a couple wins. Like they could make top 3 potentially. But I think no one. I think the competitors did overlook this squad. Just there wasn't much to see here. How long are we gonna keep underestimating Mouse though, considering they did make semifinals?
To me, I say could get a win because I think they could topple a Liquid, and I think they could definitely beat a Fnatic.
They aren't favored though.
Yeah, but they're not like a favorite, which is why I put them in that could get a win.
Sure.
But I'm excited for more Mouse because I think they've got some good pieces, but they've got this very pack mentality style Counter-Strike that I'm still like, okay, I don't know how long what the longevity of this team is just yet. But let's talk about the other teams too. I think we've got like a couple more.
We have 2 more. These 2 teams are playing against each other in the first round.
Yeah. Dude, this is one of the most evenly matched round of 12s that I think we have in our bracket.
Okay. Yeah, this is a rivalry, man. It feels like these 2 teams have played against each other.
ESL Challengers like a ton. These guys have like played finals on finals with each other. It's a bit of a grudge match, I will say. Originally, it was like a very outsiders heavy matchup because they had Yekindar. But I'm gonna go lean a little bit more Furia heavy, even though outsiders looked really, really good. So I'm gonna put could get a win for Furia and outsiders and forget it. Even though I could see a world where outsiders you could completely flip it.
I think outsiders prove themselves though. I think
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later, you know, about the whole takeaways of what this group stage meant, because we didn't have a lot of hope for outsiders. We thought, okay, they could steal a win, they could squeak through, but I definitely think, though they did squeak through in the end, they definitely did prove something at the end of it, which, like, you know, very solid young CIS players on this team could look great, and for just continuity's sake, we'll put Liquid in that category. Sorry, but it's really just Team Yakindar. All right, that's gonna do it here for the tier list, though. We kind of ran through a lot of these, but yeah, we kind of gave most of our shouts throughout these. Is FaZe gonna claim? Do you think FaZe is gonna claim the Intel Grand Slam?
Dude, I mean, the thing is like the best. It's so hard to beat FaZe in a best of 5 right now. That is my issue.
True.
It's not that G2 or Vitality or Navi could have some crazy series and upset FaZe, because that's entirely possible. But a best of 5 series requires, you know, the G2s and Vitalities to have an airtight map pool, and I don't think that they have it yet, which means that it's only Navi that I think on the other side of the bracket could go toe-to-toe. I think their most mortal matchup is the C9 one, surprisingly.
Of course.
Because it's earlier on in the bracket, they take a little bit of time to warm up, and C9 also has a little less pressure on them, considering it's not a big stage match. It's a very small crowd, and it's also like studio, which is like kind of all bets are off at that point, and I could see a potential turnaround of the Dallas result happen here as well. So I think I'm going to give it like an 80-20 that they just do make history and they win the Grand Slam here.
It feels like, I mean, it also feels a little disingenuous considering the LAN environment that they're playing on. It's not the picture in the top right. I'll tell you that. It is not anything close to winning Cologne or that kind of exhilarating thrill. It'll be played in front of a studio audience of a bunch of Maltese folks who come out to show face. Nothing against those people, but it's just not the same prestige of event, it feels like.
Definitely.
On to the next, though, the best region, and we all know what region that is, North America. Well, okay, before we go into our EPL rantings, a couple of North American qualifiers just wrapped up. Some good stuff where Team 1 decided to go out there and win every single one of them. Thoughts?
Oh, man. Dude, I am, like, they're passing every test in flying colors right now, like that North America is throwing at them. Although Nouns had a stand-in, it was still a tough series to win. Yeah, but Nouns broke their map win streak, correct?
Yes,
and like,
correct.
After that happened, they just battered the shit out of them, and like that in and of itself is just amazing. They smacked around EG White, like their group looked like a piece of cake. Like, although they did have a labored time against B-Hop. I mean, B-Hop is gonna B-Hop.
I think B-Hop is okay. Like, B-Hop is a fine team here regionally.
So like, to me, it's like, okay, now you've kind of passed all your tests online. Is the next step is that you have to perform on LAN in Stockholm. Like, if they qualify for Rio, then I think it's in and of itself a huge success for this team. Yeah. The only thing is like I was going through like the number of teams that can make it through, and it's going to be really cutthroat, I think, this time around. That they're going to have to like show their A game, and if they do show their A game, I think it's like a comfortable lock-in for them, because Malbs and Maluk have just been on a bender recently.
I want to actually, like, maybe if we have a little bit of time in this segment, I actually do want to take a look at the Americas RMR. I think we will have some time in this segment because it is super interesting to start perusing through and follow the story of Team 1. But yeah, Team 1 just blew everyone up. I was casting bits and pieces of the event. I watched all the games. And Team 1 just are, individually speaking, are just on freaking fire right now. They have just 4 people who click heads, and IDK as their anchor player rarely makes mistakes. That is and that has been the strongest part about Team 1 is just their individual ability. That's what's carried them to pro leagues before. And this is, like, I think the deadliest form I've ever seen them in. So, yeah. We'll be seeing them in the Blast Showdown. Good luck to them. Other NA teams, like ATK, have been gone through numerous tragedies in these qualifiers. It's a tough luck for that. It's a tough road for that team.
ATK is kind of like the sad child of the NA space, because they're so promising in like league matches, and they're so promising in like kind of pointless BO3s that don't really amount to anything. But once the pressure is actually put on them, and I know I've read a couple interviews from some of these players, they're like, yeah, I don't know what it is, but like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that like, okay, like we're at this hurdle again and we got to cross it. This is the time we cross it, and they just can't overcome it. And they've got so many outstanding and like exciting prospects in the NA scene that have been, fostered within this region, that I hope that something gives way and they just attend one of those lands. Like, let's say they even like go 2-3 at the RMR or something. That in and of itself will be just an exciting tale for them to kind of bolster their momentum in the future. So I want more from ATK, and I've always loved the potential that they've had. But to me, a bigger disappointment is EG White, because this is another qualifier where they basically have a limited number of games to play. They eked through their group. They didn't actually like qualified.
They lost to
through the high
Strife.
seed,
Everyone
right?
lost to Strife.
And that in and of itself is like, okay, what are we doing here, guys? Like, this should be, if you're EG White, you got to be like storming through this and having the conflict of interest articles to be spawned. Like that's kind of what we got to look towards, not whatever this is.
Yeah, make controversy, win.
Yeah.
Winning
exactly.
is controversy.
But we don't even have to have that conversation at this point, because like I talked about this with a number of NA people, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe the Fire League spot would go to them and then they give away the showdown. But that's all for naught. Like it doesn't matter if you don't actually win. So
yeah,
I think that's a huge issue. Just in general, I want EG White especially just play more. And EG Black's another can of worms, but EG White especially just needs to play more. It's inexcusable.
I mean, I'll just end this segment by just saying that Team 1 is in the form of their lives right now, and I don't think it's incredibly... I mean, all they can really do is just elevate the level of the teams that are around them at the moment. They weren't immortal this tournament. I mean, of course, their Team 1's Inferno just generally always needs work. It's their weakest map in the pool, and everyone in NA knows how to play it. So that's at least the direction I'm looking at it from. I mean, Nouns have probably one of the best Infernos in North America. It's probably why they took it off them. Yada yada yada. I want to dive into the Americas RMR. So let's go ahead and dive into the greatest topic of why NA is back here. Paladin.
A bit of Copium. Our main graphic here was very, had a little bit of a Copium in it, and that I think is just the state of things has me considering, like, I still need more from Liquid over a little bit of time. The sample size and just the attitude of this team when they're in bad situations is a bit worrying to me, that I can't necessarily consider them an elite level team just yet. And the main reason why I'm saying that is, like, you look at some of these holes that were in they were in the group stage, and you just look at the players across the board, like Yekindar head in hands, like Nitro's deadpan, Elige. Like there's always been discussions of how Elige falls into this kind of like silent communication situation when their team is in a bad spot. So for me, I think Team Liquid is obviously the bright light, the shining hope of NA, especially with Yekindar. But again, it cannot just be the Yekindar show. You need to have results where it's like the Cologne result, especially where OC was having a lot of impact, and you had Naf having those odd clutches here or there, and always a rock on whatever map he was playing on. Elige finding career form again. So you need the core to be a light, or else these strategies that they have out in store is just going to literally just turn into a Reddit like fantasy of Yekindar go kill.
But at the same time, I'm going to answer this question, and I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I think NA at the moment is in the best form it's been in
quite some time.
Yeah, dude, I could say since COVID started. Like, these are three, I'm going to say it, competitive teams that are competing right now. I think Evil Geniuses, with a bit more time, actually showed some good stuff. Even in their 0-2 loss against Furia, it was okay. A lot of the maps just came down to Furia winning a force buy to stop the comeback, is the biggest thing. I think Evil Geniuses came out there and impressed. I think Complexity, well, I mean, it's already a win making it to freaking playoffs. That's an impressive result as well. They took down some of the, some of the best teams, best players in Europe, just period. And Team Liquid, while it was shaky, they had to get hard carried by someone who was. It's not necessarily NA Counter-Strike, but generally said, like on a good day, the Team Liquid is definitely just a absolute force to be reckoned with. So
yeah, no, I definitely agree. But when the shots are hitting, this team looks incredibly deadly. I'll be the first proponent to say that. I think that just this bigger sample size is what's keeping me like a little bit tentative on the conversation of EG and complexity. I think EG is just one roster move away from becoming a very good team again. It just looks like Breezy's excited to play the game again, and that in and of itself is such a boon. This guy has always been such a talent, and seeing just flashes of that brilliance in this group stage was very, very nice to see. Hex is an absolute revelation. Having this guy's energy for a team like this that needs to like kind of bolster themselves and pick themselves up by their bootstraps is super important. He's also fragging very well, very selfless. Automatic is doing very well. Nealon's calling is starting to get really better. And obviously, you see the name that I'm missing out here. I think Cirque needs to go. And I think that you need to bring in, you could probably bring in another EU talent. Mantu sitting on the bench. I think that could obviously be a really good pickup. And you just have those necessary shots being hit. This team could be really good. And I think on the Cole subject, just seeing them confident is a huge step in the right direction. I mean, just the willingness to play a little bit more balls to the wall NACS is super exciting because I miss that type of style of Counter-Strike in our scene. That is just this very confident, like NA swagger type CS.
They're just slugging it out, man.
Yeah, and it works. It's something that's replicable, which is the most exciting thing. We are the only region that can do that with more of a replication basis, and I think that complexity is starting to bring that style back. So hats off to them. They're making the playoffs, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean they play that slugging out Counter-Strike. Grim was looking on freaking fire. Oh my gosh, I remember that map of Nuke. He was playing against Ents. Was some of the most entertaining CS I've seen. I totally actually would want to share a clip with you all, but maybe I'll save that for overtime. But with some of the Grim clips he was hitting. But either way, moving this one along. What we have now, everyone's favorite segment. It's where two regions collide at one another. Well, across the pond, EU. Supposedly disciplined, team oriented. They make all the right decisions. And NA, the ugly duckling of Counter-Strike. We do nefarious activities and resulting from them results of our games, okay? And we make bad roster decisions. We burn money, we light it on fire. We run bad tournaments. Oh, but that doesn't mean anything because it's NA or EU. We got to go ahead and pick up which ones we want here, Paladin. And we have a bunch of different small news topics to run down. Let's hit it with the Blast Showdown list being locked in.
Cool stuff. I mean, the Europe bracket is going to be a pretty dangerous one. I mean, all the teams that qualified are as follows: Eternal Fire, Ecstatic, Sangal, and Tai Lu on the EU side of things. I think it's going to be a very tough case to write about any other teams except Vitality. I mean, you could see a Heroic kind of fighting back in there, maybe an EF because it is online, and boy, have they been finding a lot of momentum in some of these online qualifiers. They had an insane series to win over Mouse. But I mean, yeah, again, commiserations to all of these teams to actually qualify. But the partner teams here should at least win those initial matchups. I believe the other teams. I'll pull up the NA one as well.
We have them right here, by the way, on screen. I decided to bring it up.
Do we have the NA ones as well? Because I only see the Europe one. Oh, sorry, there it is.
Yeah. I think there should. What's going on here? The NA one should
right.
Be
so it would be like one bracket is just EU, one bracket is just NA.
Oh, right. So okay, I forgot that it was split up between the two of them.
So
actually,
I think the NA bracket is actually super exciting because you've got EG coming off the back of a pretty successful EPL, complexity with the successes of EPL as well. Team 1 looking much better. Fluxo finally qualifying for a pretty stacked NA event beyond just what was that, Rotterdam?
Yeah.
And then I believe Vertex is supposed to be playing in this one. I don't know how that's gonna happen.
They're going NA, I guess.
which is exciting to have Vertex in NA, and Sharks, who haven't necessarily done anything with their new lineup. And then we'll probably have 2 invites. I'm not exactly sure who those teams will be just yet,
That might be
but
ATK, believe it or not.
that could be a very exciting team to invite into this in this case, because they could go toe to toe with some of these teams, I think, and we could have I think that one fall final spot is going to be very coveted on this side of the bracket.
I think it goes based off of the world ranking for their extra invites, so ATK might be in the mix. But for my money's worth, it's about who can beat Complexity. But Complexity returning back to NA, it could be a very different, style of Counter-Strike. There's a bunch of different new teams, new styles you have to research on. So they might not be completely up to snuff. I think Complexity are not immortal in this bracket by any means. I'm gonna say it's pretty EU. I like the teams that are being locked in. It's a bit of a weird way they're going about this one. Your thoughts, Pally?
I'll go EU here as well. It's obviously like we're obviously gonna bicker and complain at the CS:GO sun of like, oh my god, damn this format. But in and of itself, I think we'll still have a couple BO3s to say that these were successful tournaments. Because at the end of the day, when we get to those final 2 or 3 best of 3s per bracket, we've always gotten very entertaining CS. Like I think back to the last showdown where we had ENCE v Astralis, and that was actually a pretty competitive series. So I'm just gonna say, hey, EU, great some of these teams getting opportunities, and let's keep it chugging along.
Oh, this one's gonna be fun. Config has just Config's out. Whoever this guy is, Mistar is in, and Cajun B is standing in for Astralis talent. This team just got set on fire for Astralis, and they're supposed to be competing in the RMR in just about under 2 weeks.
This is probably the worst possible thing to happen to Astralis right now, because all as it is, their system is just like, it's like that SpongeBob meme where like it's all the SpongeBobs in his brain and they're like running around with like everything on fire. Like that's what's going on right now. And you bring in this poor kid, this poor guy, Mister, who's already struggling in Astralis talent as it is, and you're telling him, hey, you know what? No pressure. But we do have to qualify as a 4-time winning major org to go and play in one of the biggest opportunities that this organization has every year. And you have to replace, one of the best Danish talents of all time. So have fun doing that. We'll definitely dog you on Twitter and completely tank your career if that doesn't happen. So I'm going to go NA because I am so sad for Mister. Like, honestly, I don't care if Astralis doesn't qualify. Frankly, even if they had Config, it would have been a tough time. But poor Mister.
I mean, Astralis' like talent program has just been awful.
Well, they've let go of their best players, right? For like free of charge, like Fesser, Breezer, they've all gone.
Yeah, and I mean, that's probably the one person I might replace Config with could be Fesser. But Fesser's off to where's he off to right now? I believe we saw him go. Oh, he was on Ecstatic, I believe, or he was attempting to go to. He was playing on Monty. He was playing on Monty.
Right,
for a split second. So I'm not sure where that team is going or anything along that line. But yeah, I mean, they just let him go, I guess. You already know my response to this one. This one was just not good. No bueno.
Hey, Cajun B's back.
How old is Cajun B? He's like in his 30s. 100% he's in his 30s right now.
Prospective talent? Yes.
32-year-old prospective talent. Man, this guy just kind of burst onto the scene right now. Yeah. Wow, this is a crazy one. He hasn't played in literally unofficial in 7 months.
Yikes.
Anyways, let's move on from this one. We've been sitting around for too long. Visa issues at the RMR. Benched heroes are looking like they're just about to be benched, and not a very big chance to be very heroic. Yeah, I think we should give the full explanation for this, but Onkir and Calix have been struggling to get visas to Malta. That was an initial worry holding these events in Malta. And, well, here we are.
I think we have some Russian teams also probably going to struggle with this. There's a lot of teams to talk about there. I'm not going to go through the full list, but it's NA all around. I mean, especially with benched heroes, it's like, yeah, they're not going to do any damage, but man, would they bring in some entertainment value. Like everybody that I've talked to hates Smooya. Like they don't like watching him play, and they are like, I'm talking British people, and that just don't have like that they just love to paint this guy as a villain. And
Mhm.
I love a good villain story. I don't think we've
Yeah.
had enough of those types of players or individuals that we have in like the international space. Everybody's very like gung ho. Let's all shake hands and have a good game of CS. They might go 0-3, but hey, we're gonna get some great yells from Smooya if that was the case. So I'm just gonna go
Mhm.
NA because I'm just a bit bummed out that we won't get to see him on LAN just to cause a ruckus.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big problem that should have been. I mean, look, I'm just saying, could a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda. I'm no like freaking ambassador to like, in the
Yeah.
EU or anything like that. But this should have been a foreseen issue. Even like at least I'm not sure. Holding the RMRs online doesn't feel genuine, but you
Mhm.
do have to plan out a very. I understand logistically it makes a lot of sense for ESL because they're just coming off the back of hosting Pro League. I don't have to move any equipment anywhere. We just hold it in the same spot we were holding Pro League in. Because they already got 3 spots set up in a bunch of team rooms and everything like that. But like realistically, this needs to be planned ahead of because some people's majors are going to be on the line. I mean, it's nothing. It's the biggest problem is like the new boys in the block though. So don't like expect Na'Vi to be like missing visas because they've had visas for a long time. But for anyone who is only now just traveling internationally, specifically like one win, like Deco has been mentioned to he's struggling. I hate to say it, man. I wish I got to see that man on LAN. But yeah, that's kind of the situation that it's looking to be in at the moment. It's tough luck, but well, that's just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. I'm not gonna say it's NA. It's kind of was just bound to happen. Not that it's EU either. I will stay CIS on this one.
Yeah.
On to the next though, because our time's ticking. Zeus coming out of retirement. We'll go past the bell on this one. I wouldn't worry too much about it. But he's coming out of retirement. He's coaching Oplano. Thoughts, opinions? Is it NA or EU?
Boo.
All right.
Dude, this guy is like such a G. Oh yeah, it's EU. Yeah. I love Zeus. I think he's such a champion of our game. I mean, obviously 2-time major winner. Brought TL to new heights with Taco and was very close to kind of contesting against Astralis. And that in and of itself has me like, okay, dude, you gotta like set your sights a little bit higher. Playing with these players, and I just think the potential is just so low. I don't like this at all. Boo! I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
What do you mean, dude? They're having fun. Like,
You're having fun.
No, don't worry, dude. There's I mean, I had hopes for this Oplano team. Like, they could definitely deal some damage. We saw them do some good stuff in the RMR. Is this gonna make them, jump to major heights when you have, so much competition in the mix? I don't necessarily think so. Yeah, tough luck. We'll go ahead and hit on the Tyloo revamp before we check on out. They add in Aristo and they bring back Freeman. Aristo, completely unknown Asian talent. Finally, it's high time Tyloo takes some gambles in their lineup, like Rare Adams and the Wings Up.
Yep.
But do you like this move, or do you think we're gonna see the same results?
EU in terms of Tyloo, I think they need a change. They are far and away not the best team in Asia anymore, and this is going to try to kick them in a high gear. I think Bentet still got potential. He's got to look for another place to do it. But I think that this whole Bentet to Tyloo project is done and dusted. Give him an international project. I think he's got a little bit more to give.
Yeah, I mean, this Bentet struggled. I mean, there's still some pieces on this Tyloo team that can work. I'm going to say EU as well. I like it just because Tyloo just gone in the cycle of recycling talent over and over and over again. It's high time to pick up someone new, whether it goes well or not. Just the idea is a direction that I like for Tyloo. They need to catch up. They're falling behind the Asian scene. They have fallen behind the Asian scene. They're already like third in Asia. I wouldn't even call them first or second. Yeah, we'll go ahead and hit on the NA or EU awards, I suppose. Maybe it can wait for a different episode, but maybe it can wait for overtime, so stick around. We'll go ahead and jump into through the looking glass. We're going to go ahead and bring our takeaways from this week's, or not just this week's, but this season of ESL Pro League so far. We want to, kind of take a look back at what we saw in this group stage, what impressed us, what surprised us, what didn't impress us, what didn't change, what made us angry, mad, and all sorts of different emotions. What emotion are you feeling, Paladin?
I'm feeling actually like surprised, just in the sense that like I actually liked the last two groups of Pro League a lot. Like I don't know, I just felt more invested. Maybe it's because the NA teams were playing, so I was just kind of like hoping for a bit more, and they were showing a bit more. So the inherent nature of all these groups were just more competitive, so it was just more exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But Group A and B was still like, because you kind of like knew what was coming, and it still ended up
For sure.
like being pretty disappointing with some of these teams. But I'm still very happy with what it felt like the teams that didn't have much to show previously did. Some of the qualified through conference teams actually performed pretty well. You think Eternal Fire, you think Heat, they all had pretty good showings. And I'm excited to see how different the landscape's going to look when these conference teams, when they've actually moved to the conference stage directly before the actual main event of EPL. So the teams that actually qualify through there will have a good amount of momentum to kind of carry it on through the main stage. So I'm gonna say that the conference stage was kind of a success, and I think that there still needs to be some tweaks, but I think holistically, when you look at a big picture, I think I'm pretty happy compared to at least the last couple of seasons of EPL.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to take like some of the storylines away because we had 24 teams coming into this event, 4 groups, and a bunch of different teams that we thought we were gonna be writing off. And I mean, we did. I don't want to forget some of like the biggest upsets as well, like Endpoint coming through with a win over Na'Vi. That
Good point.
who remembers that, folks? You guys remember
Yeah.
that? Yep. But like there are some definite great moments out of this group stage. But there were also like some things that just make me go resident sleeper. I kind of want to hit on the first point. I kind of made these up on the fly. And you can kind of just like touch base on this. I put this segment as Na'Vi. 2 and 3 was not the expected result out of them. Especially, again, coughing the series up to Endpoint and a variety of things. What was your biggest surprise throughout this event?
Honestly, I'm gonna say Outsiders. I had them as a team that was going to disappoint. At least from what I gathered before at Cologne, they kind of looked very meh. Obviously, they came 13th through 16th, like they made it through the play-ins, no problem.
Oh, for sure.
But inherently, just not having Yekindar and just having to fill that shoe is really difficult. And I was humbly surprised. Honestly, I thought they could have made it even further up. Like the series that they lost against FaZe was down to a couple key rounds that they kind of lost because of themselves. And then obviously they got battered by G2 because, G2 was in fine form. So all in all, I think it was a pretty respectable result from Outsiders. And I'm excited to kind of say that, hey, look, maybe they can do some damage at Rotterdam. Maybe you can peg them as one of the favorites to kind of run it back and then get a conference spot, because I think this team looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think Outsider, yeah, I would totally go out with that. Na'Vi not looking great, but I think they will bounce back for sure. Look, I think Complexity came out there and, I mean, okay, the first 2 wins were really, really, really surprising. I mean, they've always had a good record against Heat, but the win against Astralis, no matter what the form, even the form from Astralis was, arguably better. I mean, Farley had a good group stage, believe it or not, despite them not making Pro League playoffs. Farley had a good group stage. It was just kind of I think just the overall Astralis system needs a revamp, but still, like Complexity showed up, they delivered. I think everyone can go out there and say that they surpassed expectations. Big time. FaZe not looking at themselves. G2 going 5-0. Who was expecting that, right? I don't think many people. I mean, personally, for us here, we weren't very hopeful. We didn't think this was like a title contender. We thought they were a good team. We thought they were okay. But Hooksy stepped up, right? I think that's totally something to point out. But yeah, that's I think those are a couple of the biggest surprises we saw throughout this group. It was pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the last big one is probably just stuff we'll talk about in Group D, but we'll keep it chugging along.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll touch on it because although the group shaped out as exactly as we kind of expected, the way we got there was very interesting.
Mhm.
So let's keep talking about some more disappointing teams, so to speak. Group B is basically the kind of subheading that we've put here because um
Or
wait, Group B?
that's my bad. That was leftover. Group A. We'll leave this
Group
like group.
A.
Group A was a
Yes.
bunch of
Yes.
yeah. So Group
That
A,
actually
we
makes
can
a lot
talk
more
about. We
sense.
can talk about Astralis. We can talk about NIP. Yeah, those were.
Team Spirit as well. I mean,
I had
it's
expectations for them.
yeah. I think honestly, even Big Clan, you could talk about them.
Yeah.
It's just like they're kind of just here to just be here, and it's the very like, what are we doing here, teams, and like they'll get their wins here, there, they'll get their BO1s, in the RMR, you'd think, but and then maybe they even qualify for the major. Some of these teams, but it's just super disappointing that like some of these orgs are really just phoning it in. And I have just high expectations with the amount of money and backing that some of these teams have, and I'm just really disappointed by. I think NIP and Astralis, the ones that we've headlined here, are probably the biggest ones, just because the bases that they have should be kind of like a no-brainer to at least succeed a lot more than they are right now.
I'm just wondering what NIP management is thinking LXCB is going to bring to the team. Um.
Ugh.
Anyways, I mean that's a nightmare from about 3 weeks ago. If you forgot who was on NIP's books. Yeah. There is some. Yeah, I mean, it really NIP, Astralis, and Big have made absolutely zero progress since the player break. I think we even knew going into this that Astralis were the fakest top 5 team in the world. I guess what they're top number 4 in the world right now. Yep, I'd love to see it.
Hasn't changed.
Ah, yes. The de facto number 4 team in the world. No one can contest that point, whatsoever. But yeah, this is I'm not really. I have. They showed up. I guess they showed up. They might have won a best of 3 and then they dipped. Wasn't happy with these ones for sure. And it's RMR time, so got to kick it in the high gear without config somehow. But yeah. Anyways, new contenders. Did we see some teams that they didn't make playoffs, but did we see signs that these teams can improve?
So I'm gonna make a video about them soon, but Heat really impressed me. They went 1-4, but I think it was basically because they had a very slow start. They got absolutely battered by Ents. They couldn't recover against Complexity, and then they got the win over Astralis, which was very hard fought. And the series against Heroic and Malice, respectively, were both really close. They were down to just again some really swing rounds here or there that were running away from them. And I think that they have a lot of potential to kind of run it back and qualify for the major.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe secure themselves an RMR spot for next year's major, which is in Paris. So that could be really big. And I think EG is obviously the other one. Hats off to them for just looking like a little bit more cohesive, and the fact that they actually look like a team that's one piece away from having a little bit more to
They're
give.
close. They're close to it, right? Is the
Yeah.
biggest thing there for EG. I'll give one more shout out to a team from in this category. We talked a little bit about them already, but I think Spirit have a lot more to give. There's a lot more to improve upon. Of course, you lose Dexter, who is just the heart and soul of your team, but I think Wonderful can turn it. I think time is definitely what they need, because I think the biggest benefit that Team Spirit team had was that they were just been together for so long. They've had they've had their successes together throughout a couple of majors, and now they kind of replace their centerpiece, AWP. I think there's some stuff to work on, but we know this team has it in them to do stuff and to go far. They didn't make the major playoffs. I don't think that was a fluke. Personally, I think this team actually has some legs to it. But I'll willing to be proven wrong. I want to hit just a little bit. We'll go past the bell. The bell doesn't mean anything to us. The bell does not control us. We control it. So Group D. What were your surprises out of this one? We didn't touch too much base on it, but yeah, takeaways.
Hey, I mean, the series win over Liquid. Look, it did have to have Woxic go on a life game,
True.
and OC to play absolutely awfully. But look, I think that some of the momentum that they showed in some of their qualifiers and the grit and determination that they showed towards the tail end of the group made me just happy that there is legs to some of this lineup. again, I think if they had just xCloud for Paz, this team would do incredible things. But until then, I was humbly surprised. I'm glad that Major is still like a pretty impactful IGL in terms of fragging, and
Yeah.
Nepal's weren't the worst in the world.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like innovative Counter-Strike coming out from Eternal Fire, but they played solid. Like, and Zentaris showed us all how to use a mouse and keyboard throughout this entire group. I think he was the third highest rated player in the tournament, despite only winning one single series, or two series. Just obscene work from Zentaris. The man still got that dog in him, I'm telling you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we kind of hit base on most of what we wanted out of Group D. Was anyone expecting Movistar Riders to get a win?
I will say Martineza looked really good.
Yeah, he did.
He looked really good.
He did.
But everything else kind of just like
Mopaz fell off a cliff. Like,
yeah, and we talked about it in like the inception of our podcast, how much we thought that Mopaz's impact like relied with the success of Movistar in general. And if he's not performing, their impact just craters, you know, and I think that's the biggest issue.
I'll take his stats in the last month. Yeah. That group stage, a 0.75 rated group stage for Mopaz, who was just the defining force behind Movistar. In terms of impact, in terms of entries, in terms of multi-kills. Again, he was that toolbox player. He was that superstar rifler for a bit when, you know, if some Pius was offline, for example, Mopaz would carry the torch. Oh, the player break has not been good to this man. And I think we didn't expect anything different. They got a map off of Liquid, but that was just because of godlike. Again, Martineza looked fine, I think. There's something going behind the scenes that we couldn't tell you what's happening. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap this segment up. We have STONKS coming your way, our predictions for what's going to be happening during the playoffs. Yeah, well, shall we hit on last week's? Let's quickly jump into this. Last week's investments, Yuri and Automatic. Were we reasonable in this? Were we silly gooses?
It's really odd because Automatic wasn't necessarily even like the star of the EG show, and Yuri wasn't necessarily the star of the Furia show. Even though both of the teams succeeded, we like picked the wrong individuals, which is really funny. That like even though like the kind of odds for all of these selections kind of made sense. A buck in the trend was in our hands this time.
Yeah.
But they both still played pretty well. I don't think I had really any real complaints. Obviously, when I reference who was actually better, I have to look towards on EG side. Personally, I thought Hext played very well for this team.
Sure.
In terms of impact, and I think that Cerrado obviously played extraordinarily well for Furia.
He was a god, dude. He was the unkillable god king of Furia, man.
Yeah.
I remember a commentary bit from Sponge. Is their Eternal Fire game, 3 versus 5 CT side nuke, and it's like, well, it's a 3 versus 5. It's a 3 versus 5, but Cerrado's alive. He'll kill them all. And four players of Eternal Fire went outside, one Cerrado, and he killed them all. So that was the type of stuff that Cerrado was doing. Yuri, I mean, he's always solid. Like, I don't think there's anything, but Cerrado is in. I mean, that man he's in the form of his career right now.
He's peaking at the right time, man.
Yep.
Hopefully, he can keep this up. I really hope so.
I'll make my one comment on Automatic. He hasn't been necessarily a great LAN player, specifically. Like, Pro League, in the wins, he was popping off. In the losses, he was middle of the pack. All things said. But Breezy was the man of the hour over there at Evil Geniuses. He was the one who actually turned up and looked decent on LAN. So, against good opposition. So, hop back in the DeLorean, Breezy. Good stuff. Anyways, let's go to our picks for this week. We'll see how they pay off. Paladin, who do you got?
Okay, I mean, I'll pick Frozen here. I think that the big thing about Frozen is that I've always wanted him to kind of succeed after he basically had his entire original lineup disintegrate around him. And it took some time for him to find the roles that he wanted, find the structure that he wanted, and now he's prospering. He did an absolutely fantastic job in his group. He was a big component as to why he succeeded. His team succeeded in particular. And I'm happy to see that he is feeling comfortable on this team because, I mean, that in and of itself is just a big deal. I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth, fifth highest rated player of the entire tournament thus far. So props to him, and I'm looking to him to be that impact player if they do want to make that semifinal berth.
I think that would be a huge. They could. I think Mavs. Liquid can't play the same that they did just throughout like these last couple of matches in the group, where they just weren't. It didn't feel like it was just a team effort, it's a Yakindar effort. Because I think this this Mavs team is not just the Frozen show. I think there's a lot of elements that can play. Or maybe maybe I'll retract my statement a little bit on that and say Mavs might be in a similar boat as Team Liquid. Not that like it's not to the same extent. Frozen is the man who is hard carrying this unit, but they have other elements, right? Just kind of how Liquid can have a good OC game, right? Or you can have a Liege and Naf have great performances. I think that can bode the same for Mouse. Yeah, so I'll agree with your pick. But over for me, Spinks on my end. You might think a lot of people might think, oh my gosh, it's too early. You're putting it down on this guy. Well, I'm not wagering any money. So yes, I am. And okay, and for this reason is when you watch this guy play, the team play in particular is what's there between himself and Vitality. He positions himself well around his team. He fits his team's roles perfectly, in my opinion, and he's slotted in. I think the one thing a proving factor is for such a new and some would say inexperienced player to the international stage. Keep in mind, he was playing on mixed teams just about a year and a half ago. He is turned into a player that can just gel into a system. So, yeah, that's basically going to do it. Any thoughts on my pick? Come on, I picked some good stuff.
That's a great pick. I mean, I think the one situation that really sold me on Spinks as on Vitality is he's never played Inferno on Ents as it was their permaban. And as soon as he started playing this map with Vitality, he had a very difficult role of playing like arch side and like rotator positions, and that isn't easy. That position is not easy. You have to be very agile, you have to be very mobile, make sure that you're hitting those insta bullets, and you've got to have certain protocols depending on what smokes are being thrown at you and what smokes you're throwing at yourself. You've got to be very, very confident in what kind of protocols you're setting with the utility you're throwing at yourself. Like all of these things are just, it's like a huge thing to like nail out of the gates, especially in like actual officials. Pugs are a different thing. FPL is a different thing. Doing it for Vitality is much more difficult. And I think that the fact that he did that well was like, holy shit, this is going to really work, because the micro of this team now looks much better. Obviously, the macro is still something that's going to have to be worked upon, but having Spinks not be a liability is like another thing that Apex doesn't have to worry about, Zonic doesn't have to worry about, that this thing can just, chug itself along and work itself out.
Well, we have about a minute and a half of overtime here. I mean, we had some fun. Honestly, I'd like this kind of like looser style of podcast where I could go ahead and bring up the brackets and inform all the viewers. I think this was fun to do it a bit more on the fly. I think one final thing before we check out. Did we miss anything in the news segment? I'm trying to run this one back. No, but we could go with the NA or EU awards. Do you have any small news throughout this season that actually popped out to you as the most NA or the most EU?
I will pull out as far as EU is concerned, I will pull out the Henry G story. I think it is, I mean, it's not team related, but to me, it's very near and dear to my heart, just because I think that Sato and Henry G were one of the best duos that we've ever had in Counter-Strike, and missing one half of that was a huge blow to the scene. Having him burnt out and then going to NFTs is very, very upsetting. And now that he's back, he looked re-energized. He looked excited to be here. He's not there for the playoffs, but man, we gotta listen to him for quite some time. Great to see him back in the saddle.
So there are a couple of things that went down this September that probably are NA worthy. And I'll go ahead and pick out my most NA, and that is Navi placing a Hedrick on the transfer list. Oh, come on, boys. He had one good tournament. And you're selling him off. Anyways, Paladin, that's going to kind of bring us to the end of the show here. That's been episode 10. Paladin, how did you enjoy this one? Was it good, bad, or ugly?
I think this good episode was like a summation of kind of what we've been trying to strive for a long time. You know, we've got a bit of on the fly stuff. We've got a bit of like pre planned stuff as well, like with the
Mhm.
tier lists and whatnot.
We got more.
I'm loving, yeah. I'm loving the direction that we're heading. We've got a lot of interesting ideas that we've still got formulating for this show, and I think that we can do even better. And I hope you guys will stick along with us for the ride because we're excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been episode 10 of the NA podcast. Tune in. We do this live on Mondays or typically uploaded over towards the morning times on Tuesday. I like using just like random stuff on my desk as pointers. It makes me really authoritative. So, folks, this has been episode 10 of the NA podcast. We'll see you guys next Monday or Tuesday, depending on where you're watching this from. Peace out.